What is going on, guys? Dabrunski here, and today I'm going to be reviewing Wolcen Lords of Mayhem. This is a brand new ARPG game that was just released, and I started streaming a playthrough of it on my channel, and I was probably asked a few thousand times what I thought about this video game, so I thought I would do a review video on it. It's going to be broken down into 4 parts. First is what I enjoyed about the game. Second, what I disliked. Third, changes or features that I would like to see implemented into the game. And then fourth, kind of my overall thoughts and whether or not I would recommend you guys to buy this game. I want to be completely transparent and open. I have completed about 90% of the campaign on offline mode, so I haven't experienced any of the endgame content yet. I've only been playing single player offline, so I haven't had a chance to experience what the online gameplay is like on these servers, but I just wanted to be fully transparent with you guys so you have an idea where this initial review video is coming from. But first, we'll start off by talking about the aspects that I really enjoy about this game. The first aspect would have to be the graphics and the atmosphere of Wolcen. Now, I'm being totally honest here. It might be because I have so many hours on Diablo 2 win mode capped at 25 FPS, and then jumping to 144 FPS, 144 Hertz Wolcen full screen monitor. I mean, that might have something to do with it, but to be honest, I was blown away by the graphics and the atmosphere of the game. I thought it was phenomenal. There's a lot of really cool segments of the game when you're kind of overlooking big, vast landscapes, sort of similar to when you're taking on the Ancients in Diablo 2, when you can kind of see down everything on the bottom of Mount Ariat. But I really enjoyed that aspect of Wolcen. Second would be the offline mode. I think it's really cool that they introduced the option to play single player, because I've only played single player on this game so far, and it was actually kind of nice considering the massive headache or issues that they were having with the server, like the online gameplay. It seems like, from what I've gathered talking to community members in the Discord, that the offline Wolcen was a lot more stable than the servers. So again, we'll discuss some of the server issues later. But the third aspect that I really liked about this game was the combat mechanics. Everything felt really smooth to me. There was a couple tiny bugs of like certain specific monsters that weren't taking damage, but that was patched out like I think the second day. But overall, everything felt really smooth. Like the interaction of the different skills, some are based on charges, others rage. It just felt really well done. I mean, again, I don't have tons of experience on a lot of modern day RPGs, but you can argue that you might not like the look of the game, but I don't think it's fair to say that the combat mechanics was not smooth. I also really liked the fact that they introduced an easy way to respec your character. You're not kind of set in stone with the decisions that you make, so whether or not you want to use gold or interact, which is an in-game currency, you can respec your passive skill tree or your character attributes, so you're not kind of set in stone, and just really gives you the freedom to play around with different builds and not really be too restricted. And then tying into the theme of not being very restrictive, Wolcen has insane character customization. This is something that I really liked. So between each individual skill, you can really learn almost any skill in the game by dropping an interact and then consuming it, sort of similar to Diablo 1, how a warrior can learn Firewall. You're not sort of set in stone with specific skills or specific character builds like Diablo 2, but as you level each individual skill, you unlock different abilities that you can apply to that particular skill to again customize it even further. So I found that through my playthrough, I kind of tweaked how I was using these individual skills multiple times depending on how kind of my playstyle was evolving. So I really liked that this was an option. And then, not to mention, there is virtually limitless possibilities when it comes to tailoring your character with the passive skill tree. Now, you can argue that this is sort of a direct ripoff of PoE. I basically just followed my way through the green portion of the tree, which is for the ranger based character, which was my first build that I decided to use for my Wolcen playthrough. But the fact that you can spin the dials around, you can kind of go into the melee or the sorcerer's tree depending on the gear that you're using. I think that there is all kinds of different theory crafting that you can apply for other end game builds. So really just a lot of untapped potential. If you think about all the theory crafting that we've done in Diablo 2 based on the small limited skill tree, there is, I mean, again, I said it multiple times, unlimited possibilities when it comes to the passive skill tree, which I think is very cool. And then finally, you can completely tailor the look of your character based on different pieces of armor or dyes. So the fact that you can really come up with almost any build that you want and then make it look very unique is a really cool aspect of Wolcen. It's something that I really enjoyed. And the final thing that I really liked about this game is the drop rates. Through my playthrough, we're talking about 20 hours. I only dropped one unique item, one legendary item, and then I earned one other legendary from a quest reward. So it wasn't sort of scaled like Diablo 3, where I was kind of just, you know, midway through the campaign, I dropped multiple legendary items. It seems like the drop rates of Wolcen are tuned a little bit more with Diablo 2. So I think that would kind of appeal to people that like the kind of grinding idea of ARPG versus just everything dropping in Diablo 3. Now, again, with that being said, I haven't put hours into the endgame portion of Wolcen, so I don't know if that completely changes and they start dropping all over the place, but it seems like initially the drop rates are much more in tune with Diablo 2, which again, I really like that. Despite the fact that there were several things that I enjoyed about Wolcen, there are almost as many things that I did not like about the game, and some of them are kind of being a little nitpicky, and then others are kind of more major issues that need to be addressed. But first off, I am not a huge fan of guns in sort of a medieval setting. Now, again, that makes me kind of look like a hypocrite if you watched my playthroughs, because a large portion of it I was using dual pistols, and then I ended up using a skill at the end called Havoc Orb, which is essentially a bazooka launcher or a grenade launcher. It was just a very powerful skill, very effective, so I was using it a lot, so it does make me look like a bit of a hypocrite. I mean, Wolcen is kind of its own game. It sort of draws inferences from Diablo 2, Diablo 3, PoE, but I don't like the guns in a medieval setting. I don't really like it. The second thing is that there is multiple broken exploits in terms of like just specific skills that definitely need to be addressed now. With that being said, there has already been a second massive patch update that is supposed to address numerous bugs, but there is still, according to, again, speaking with members of my community, there's a couple builds that have like insane bleed damage and crit damage that can one hit endgame act bosses, and then there's also other builds that have 100% block rate, so it's actually impossible to take damage. So these are huge balancing issues, like massive balancing issues that need to be addressed. Now, I think this is sort of affecting more of the online gameplay, guys that have time to put in hundreds of hours into this game, which I don't, because I haven't really done any exploiting on my single player playthrough so far. But again, massive balancing issues that need to be addressed. Also, duping. Apparently you can dupe gold or dupe gems to sell them for higher value than normal, so currency is basically worth nothing on the servers right now. Again, not something that can't be fixed easily with a patch update, but that is another huge issue, sort of similar to botting in D2, how it kind of destroys the economy. Again, something that will not affect you if you play single player, but something that needs to be addressed. I keep saying that, needs to be addressed, but it has to be. And then finally, I felt like there was a big disparity between the difficulty of regular monsters and end act bosses, especially the Act 2 end boss, because I haven't quite made it to the final Act 3 boss yet, but it felt like I was kind of making my way through Act 2 completely fine, and then when I got to the final act boss, I kind of was stonewalled and I had to do some leveling off stream and gearing up a bit, and then go back at it a second time. So I definitely think that while I enjoy the difficult end act bosses, I'm not saying make them easier, but I think it would be nice if they sort of scaled the monster difficulty to sort of match the endgame monsters. So that covers all of the things that I currently dislike about Wolcen in its state right now. Fortunately, the silver lining is that everything, with the exception of the guns in a medieval setting, can be addressed via patch updates, which brings me to features or aspects that I would like to see added to Wolcen in the future. The first is huge. I would like them to add some sort of search function or filter for the passive skill tree. So maybe something like just a checklist for any specific nodes in the passive skill tree that will boost dodge chance or crit chance or overall percentage health or force shield. You get the point. Something that just makes it a little bit easier to distinguish how I want to invest my skills, rather than just hovering the mouse over each individual node in the entire massive spider network of available passive skills in Wolcen. It was just something that would be kind of just a nice quality of life change. The second is that I would like to see specific items labeled when they drop. So it'd just be nice if like a helmet drops or pants or boots or whatever, that there's maybe like a symbol beside it that will indicate whether it's for a bruiser, rogue, ranger, sorceress, or whatever. Just something that will make it easier to distinguish loot as it drops. Kind of like a class specific loot identification system. A little bit of polishing on the cutscenes and removing or reducing entirely a lot of the narrative talking in the campaign playthrough. Now, this is kind of being extremely nitpicky. I mean, a lot of people that are just picking up this game to play the endgame content won't care about kind of polishing the cinematics, but I mean, it looks like there's moments in the cutscene when they're talking, but their mouths aren't really moving like your character. So that is something that I think would be nice to see, you know, like a little bit of a polishing detail. And again, really reducing some of the extremely long narrative talking. It's a little bit boring. I was listening to all of it through the campaign, like the first half of it, but then I just started skipping through it because it got very repetitive. But that being said, though, I know I just talked about polishing the cinematics. Overall, I did think that they were okay. And finally, I'd like to see some improved online stability. Now, I'm not really going to hold a lot of the initial server launch issues against Wolcen, but it would be nice to see them ironed out quickly. No more black screens, loading screens, people losing progress and having to start over. I believe that the majority of that stuff has been fixed. A lot of initial video game launches have these server issues. So again, it's just something that I would like to see improved on in the future, some increased online stability. But I'm not really holding it too much against Wolcen for my overall ratings and recommendations. Which brings me to the end of this video. What do I think about Wolcen overall as a whole, and would I recommend you guys go out and buy this game? I think that it's its own unique ARPG. It draws inferences from D2, D3, PoE, mixes everything up in a blender, and the end result is an interesting and unique title that's not super spell spammy. I think it's the furthest thing from a Diablo 3 carbon copy. I think anybody that says that is 1000% wrong. I definitely think it's its own game. Now, with that being said, there is definitely some specific issues that need to be addressed within the game as soon as possible, but I have confidence that the developers will iron out these bugs and issues very shortly. Now, would I recommend you pick up this game? If you have $40 and you want to play it immediately, money's not an issue, yes, go out and buy this game. It's a blast. If you're expecting a superior polished game that has zero flaws, wait a little bit until you pick it up, or don't pick it up at all. It's not perfect, but with that being said, I mean, Diablo 3 was not perfect on launch. Neither was Diablo 2. Multiple patch updates made those specific games what they are today. So overall, I think it's a great game, and I would definitely recommend picking it up. But that wraps up everything for this video, guys. If you made it all to the end, thank you so much for watching. If you guys liked this style of video, I may do it for future new titles that are released in this genre of video game. But as always, if you guys could throw a like on this video, share it, and even consider subscribing if you're new to my channel. I post new weekly content and stream on a consistent basis, so there's always new stuff to look forward to, and your support with the sub means a lot. Other than that, guys, hope you have a fan-frickin-tastic day, and I'll see you on my next video or live stream. Peace out.